Hello everybody, welcome and thank you so much for sending all your questions to us. We had loads of emails and messages through Instagram. Eddie and I have taken some time to sift through them. There was some good stuff to read.
Yeah, we went through hundreds of questions, actually. We went through some really good ones, some themes emerging, certainly.
Yep.
Yeah, so we kind of compiled them together, and we've got some answers for you.
Exactly. So over the next little while, we're going to read through the questions, give some answers, and hopefully tell you what you need to know about the new edition of Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah. Thanks for sending them in as well, by the way.
Before I jump into it, how did your game with Aiden go this week? That looked interesting.
Oh, yeah, great game. Great looking table. Obviously, I beat him in the game, but he beat me on paint scores.
I would expect nothing less from Aiden.
That's what you get.
Awesome. That segues beautifully into our first question, which is, you've just announced ready painted terrain. Will you be also selling unpainted terrain?
We definitely will be selling unpainted versions of that terrain as well.
Sure.
So you'll be able to choose whether you want to have the convenience of being able to assemble the battlefield quickly and not worry about painting it, or if you've got a battlefield that you've been working on for a long time or a basing scheme or something, we will sell unpainted terrain so you can paint it whatever style you want.
Perfect. Essentially, you can do what you've already been doing or try the new stuff when it comes. Next question. Are there any plans to sell ready painted miniatures?
No.
No. No?
No.
No. Right. Here's a controversial question. Who will be the next returning Loyalist Primarch?
It's a good question, but I'm really sorry to break it to you, Adam. They're actually all dead.
All of them.
I'm pretty sure they're all dead.
Well, so we do know that like Russ is back as a tank, Rogel Dawn as a tank. If I was a betting man, you could expect a battle tank called a Khan or a
Probably be quite fast.
Manus or a Sanguinius at some point. Interesting that the question was who rather than will as well. They're dead, according to Eddie.
That's true.
Okay, so into Legends. How will Legends be supported in the new edition? Eddie, what you got?
Yeah, so Legends will continue to be supported the same way it is now. There'll be data sheets for units that have existed in previous incarnations of Warhammer 40,000. One of the things that we'll have when the codexes start to drop for the new edition is that you will start to see Legends units added into the Warhammer 40,000 app. So not right at the beginning of the edition, but as the codexes start to release, the app will update with Legends as well, and you have the option to include them in your army that way as well.
Nice. That actually kind of answers the next question, which is will Legends be in the app? So not at launch, but soon after. Perfect. Are there any changes to Battleshock that make it more impactful?
Yeah, so we had quite a few people asking this one.
It was a recurring topic, wasn't it?
So particularly coming from Night Lords and Tyranids players.
Almost like they want you to run away.
And there are a few things that make Battleshock more impactful. The first of them is that you now take Battleshock tests when you're at half strength rather than below half strength. So that means that if you've got a unit of 2 or you've taken half wound on a vehicle or something, you have to start taking Battleshock. The other really big thing, though, is that you don't un-Battleshock automatically at the end of a turn. That means that if you go into your next turn and you're Battleshocked, you have to test to un-Battleshock, effectively, regardless of how you became Battleshocked.
Prevents use of stratagems on Battleshock units.
Yeah, right? So one of the things people do at the moment quite a lot is that if they've got a unit on an objective that's really important, they go, I'm going to use my once a game stratagem to auto pass that Battleshock. But if you're already Battleshocked going into that, you can't use it because you can't use stratagems when you're Battleshocked. So that's quite impactful. Battleshock is a bigger thing in this edition than previous editions.
Agreed. So, a question about some of the miniatures in the Armageddon launch box. It says, I love the new Armageddon banner, but I have a Dark Angels army.
This might be one for you. This is one for you, I think.
Were the Dark Angels ever on Armageddon? So, ever is a mutable term, right? Operation Imperator, which is the book that comes in the Armageddon launch box, doesn't specifically cite the Dark Angels having a presence on Armageddon in the crusade that the Space Marines launch, but it does disclose that there are a number of unspecified chapters sort of at work there. So I think if you wanted Dark Angels or Unforgiven with an Armageddon theme, I think it's completely reasonable. I know I'm going to. With mine. So.
The other thing we do know is that in some of the earlier battles for Armageddon, so just before the third war for Armageddon, there were definitely Dark Angels in a nearby system fighting against Nazdrag and Ghazghkull, that kind of alliance. So there have been Dark Angels in the vicinity of Armageddon in the past.
They've got a history.
They do, yeah.
I like that. Okay, so more on models that we see in the Armageddon launch box. Will we see multi-part versions of any of the units that come in the Armageddon launch box as part of future releases?
Yes, we will. There will be multi-part versions of several of the units in the Armageddon set. Those units, the multi-part versions, will bring new options as well, and they're designed to supplement and complement the units that come in the Armageddon set.
Cool. This is one of the most asked questions, I think, or close to. It says, is Deathwatch still an army in the new edition? I got worried when they didn't feature alongside Space Marines in their faction focus.
Yeah, so we got quite a lot of this question in. Lots of you playing Deathwatch want to make sure your army still works in the new edition. It absolutely does. Deathwatch continue to work kind of as they do today. So you can either add them into Imperial armies through Imperial Agents, through the Ally system, or you can take a Space Marine army and say this is a Deathwatch Space Marine army. You don't get any new detachments necessarily in the new edition as it launches, but you can access all the various different Space Marine detachments that other Space Marine chapters can as well. So you've still got a few options in terms of how your detachments might work.
Sure, that makes sense. Rather pointed question. Do shooting armies suck now?
Yeah, so we've shown quite a lot of rules from the new edition, and there's like a bit of a narrative, I guess, online about lots of them look quite favourable to combat armies. And certainly if you've got a combat army, there's lots of things to look forward to. There's a few people who've got like Tau players, Astra Militarum players, that sort of thing, are a little bit worried that their armies might not function as well into combat armies. They work absolutely fine. There are a few things that help out shooting armies in the game in terms of how the battlefields and the missions work. So one of the things that definitely helps is that most of the time now the objectives are a terrain piece. And that means that to take the objective, you have to be on the terrain. At the moment, in the current edition of Warhammer 40,000, a lot of the time you can kind of take an objective by sort of putting your toe onto it on the other side of a wall
parking
somewhere.
the other side and avoiding.
That's very difficult to do in the new edition. So most of the time when a unit is taking an objective, it will basically be available as a target to fire at as long as you can get close enough. The other thing is that a lot of the missions, if you have a combat army, encourage you to basically run across open ground towards enemy units. So if you can set up firing lanes appropriately, shooting armies do very well at kind of blunting that initial charge. So they will be fine. The other thing is that if any units maybe perform slightly differently than they used to because of rules changes, there will be some points changes into the new edition as well. So they will be fine. If you've got a Tau army, you'll be fine.
You can almost feel the Tau players right in that one, couldn't you? Similar to the Deathwatch question, I suppose, but are Greyknights still an army?
Greyknights are definitely still an army in the new edition.
Very much so, right?
And they will get some new detachments.
Sweet. Next question, almost the mirror of Greyknights. What's going on with Daemons?
So Daemons as well continue to be an army into the new edition. Daemons didn't get a codex in the last edition, but they did get their index at the start of 10th. That index continues to be completely legal in games of Warhammer 40,000, and on top of that you've got some new detachments that allow them to do some stuff that they couldn't previously do. So Daemons absolutely continue to be an army, and will also feature in the kind of god-specific Chaos Legions
Thousand Sons,
as well. So you can have either.
Awesome. So here's a bit deep. I saw some of the new Ork units have Combi-weapons where the stats change. Is that a thing we can expect more of?
So yes, broadly. So some of the new Ork units, as spotted, have things like combi rockets or combi scorchers, that sort of thing. And in the new stat lines, they now distinguish between what kind of thing is attached to your shooter, basically. So what we're not doing is going back to units that already exist and changing all the stats for existing data sheets. But what you might see is, where appropriate, as codexes release into this edition, combi weapons might tailor themselves into their specific niche. So combi rockets is a great example. The combi rocket has a stat which has an anti-vehicle, effectively, version that does more damage to vehicles, rather than just being a generic combi shooter.
Makes sense. The next question, I've seen this one a few times. What happened to Runtherds? The answer to which is Runtherds still entirely exist. They're now 0 to 1 on Gretchen units. So you can have a Runtherd if you like, but if you want your Gretchen to be free and frolic and enjoy life, unoppressed by
do you want your Grot supervised, basically?
There you go.
You can choose.
And the question really is, how long do you want them to stick around? Very good. When will we see a battle report for the new edition on Warhammer Plus?
That's a great question. So we will have a battle report on Warhammer Plus, which features the rules of the new edition. That battle report will be landing this month, so in May, which is pretty cool. Next one we've got on here is a lore question, which is Armageddon the same planet as Ullanor?
I mean, on the one hand, that sounds something like Heresy, and Imperial records have probably been lost. But on the other hand, kind of confirmed in the Beast Arises series, right?
Heavily implied, I think.
Heavily implied or confirmed?
Is there anything ever really confirmed in Warhammer?
I would bet a pint, but not my house.
That's fair. So next one is, will we see points of units change in the new edition?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Loads of things will change in terms of the points, infantry up, artillery down, and so on. It's going to happen. You'll see them when they come out with the balance data slates and things. I wouldn't make any big decisions now based on points. You'll see them as the edition releases. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah, so I think there are some themes in terms of the directions of points. So you can already kind of extrapolate some of the things that might be changing based on the rules that we've shown on the Warhammer community website.
Sure.
So units that are very fast combat moving infantry, for example, are very good in this edition, right? Like, so if you've got things like Possessed or something, or like Court 8-bound, that sort of thing, are very good. There are some units which maybe aren't as effective as they used to be. So things like artillery is like still definitely worth having in your army, but is relatively less effective than it was. So that might cost less points, so you could get more in or find more space for other units in your army. And there will be a few things like that where they've kind of worked out this kind of unit is a bit better, this kind of unit is a bit worse. But broadly speaking, your armies will be roughly the same size.
Makes sense. I think an Ork player wrote this one. I'd like to think that if the Orks win Armageddon, they'd call it Warmageddon.
I think that's a solid shout. They definitely have a cool Orky name for it.
Also, if they win, it just never stops being a war zone, right? They just fight forever.
Yeah, I think the Orks don't really want to win Armageddon outright.
But winning is just the fight never ending.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. If they killed all of the people they were fighting on Armageddon, they'd probably be a bit sad about it.
They have nothing else to do.
Yeah.
Invite more people.
They're probably quite happy.
So how does Ignore's cover work on all those flamer weapons? Now it does nothing.
Yeah, so in the last edition of Warhammer 40,000, when you had a cover save, it was basically +1 to your armor save.
Yep.
And if you had a flamer that ignored cover, they didn't get that bonus.
Mm-hmm.
In the new edition, cover gives you -1 to hit. Most flamer weapons have
Automatically hit.
torrent and have ignores cover. Torrent is, relatively speaking, a more useful rule than it used to be, because -1 to hit is a big debuff to units they're shooting. But it doesn't do anything extra on top of ignores cover. So when you see flamers, when we start to roll out things like codexes, you might see some changes to stats. There isn't a specific new rule for ignores cover and torrent that does anything extra that you might expect. Flamers are about as good as they were in the last edition.
Yeah, and the Overwatch sequencing happening in a different place kind of helps with some of that as well, because you can flame people and automatically hit them with Overwatch, which is fantastic. Yep. They're still good.
Yeah, flamers are great. Really good.
They just have a slightly different impact. I'm really enjoying the flamer on my land speeder, for the record. Right. How do stealth and cover stack?
Yeah, so stealth is -1 to hit. The default bonus for being in cover for many units is -1 to hit. They don't stack. So if you're stealthy and in cover, you're not -2. The way to think about it really is that stealth is a way of gaining cover without having to be in cover. Mm-hmm. So you are stealthy enough that you are as difficult to hit as someone in cover, even if you're out in the open.
That makes sense.
Will Ork units still get Power Klaws?
Yeah, absolutely, is the answer. Not in the Armageddon box. Those models are all push fit, and you've seen the options. But their Orks will still have Power Claw options. And in fact, we previewed an Ork war boss a few weeks back who had a Power Claw option on. So there's even evidence of forthcoming Orks with Power Claws.
Yep. Can I mix Heavy Bolter and Melter Eliminators in one squad?
No, you can't, is the answer. And simply because they have different special abilities.
Yep.
So the Heavy Bolter Eliminators are all about crowd control, and the Eliminators with Melters are all about blowing up vehicles and heavy armor targets. So no.
That's fair.
Will Tyranid armies still get to use the Subterranean Assault detachment?
You will still be able to use Subterranean Assault, which is particularly cool because it combos very nicely with the Red Terror, who is obviously coming out for Warhammer 40,000 very soon.
Will any changes be made to falling back out of combat / desperate escape?
A little bit. So the main change there is the way that hazardous rolls work. So when you fall back from combat in some instances, you have to make hazard rolls. Hazard rolls now fail on a 1 or a 2. But if you fail them, for most units, you take a mortal wound for each failure, rather than just losing models outright. And that means that if you've got models with multiple wounds, you have to make quite a few failures before you start losing them. But failing on a 1 or a 2 is quite punishing. So you want to avoid making hazard rolls if you possibly can.
That's the reason. So, how many Space Marine Lieutenants will we be getting in the next edition?
Ooh. I think it depends how many protesters show up and demand Space Marine Lieutenants.
I like it.
Yeah. Are there still boarding actions?
Yeah. So, in fact, boarding actions, you could also roll into this the Apocalypse style rules or the Armored Spearhead.
Yeah, so all the rules that came in the supplement and expansion books.
So
on the run
500 Worlds, Maelstrom, Armageddon, Return of Yarick, all of those ways of playing, those rules that exist in those expansions, perfectly legitimate to use in 11th edition.
Yeah, they're considered current rules of those incarnations of the ways to play.
Perfect. With every objective being a piece of terrain, does this mean that every unit on an objective will get the benefit of cover, i.e. -1 to hit?
So generally it does for those units that benefit. So things like infantry, for example, are one of those units where if you're on a terrain piece, you're at -1 to hit. So most of the time, if you're firing an infantry unit on an objective, you'll be at -1 to hit.
Yeah.
If you have something like a vehicle, you can usually engineer it in such a way that you can park yourself on a little bit and have a lump of terrain or something between you and the thing that's firing at you. So you might also be able to get a -1 to hit. But you don't, if you're a vehicle, you don't innately get -1 to hit for being on it unless there's also something intervening.
Solid.
Lore-wise,
Go on.
do we know if any other factions that aren't the main ones on Armageddon have any kind of presence?
So we know bits. Right, so we get some information in Armageddon Return of Yarick, which obviously puts the Imperial Agents and a bunch of other Imperial factions present. So you've got obviously, I guess it depends what you consider main ones, but Astra Militarum and Adeptus Astartes are there in significant numbers. Adeptus Sororitas have been on Armageddon throughout. They've got a base of operations there, and sort of famous characters, the Order of the Martyred Lady, are present in great strength. But also the Adeptus Mechanicus have some holdings. We get some of the sort of factions that you might not expect appear in Imperator. There's some Votann operating as mercenaries out in one of the... my stomach's rumbling. Operating out, I want to say, in like the northern reaches. And they get quite cross. Read it, you'll enjoy it. What else would you say? Is there
Probably a
chaos
few
present?
bits of chaos. So Armageddon kind of periodically gets invaded by chaosy things, doesn't it? And I don't think you ever
there's holdouts from the
you
last
never
Chaos
kind of
War,
completely eradicate the taint. And also, if you've got lots of big hive cities and lots of big clumps of guardsmen anywhere, you've probably got the odd cult popping up.
Kel Surprise. Yeah. So, heavy transport is the header for this question. Can I use the +1 to hit on heavy weapons in the turn I disembark?
You can't have +1 to hit from your heavy weapon benefit on the turn you disembark. The heavy rule changes a little bit. You can get +1 to hit if you've moved a little bit, so you move less than
up to
3.
3 inches,
yeah, up to 3. But you can't get it on the turn that you deploy or the turn that you move out from a vehicle or if you are engaged in combat.
Perfect. Will swarms like the Canoptic Scarab Swarm finally be able to walk through walls?
So this is a question about... in the current edition of Warhammer 40,000, most infantry can effectively move through ruins, imagining that they can find a gap.
But the smallest of things somehow can't.
Which felt a bit strange. In the new edition, swarms are called out alongside infantry as a unit that is basically able to move through most types of terrain.
Mm-hmm.
So yes.
Good.
Yes.
Nice and simple. This one's nice and easy. Will Ork Boyz still have the option to have one model equip a rocket launcher or big shooter, as none have that option in the Armageddon box set? The answer is emphatically yes. You can, if you've got some lying around, you can add them into those units, make some swaps, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of ways to do it in the future as well.
I like this next question.
Hit me.
Ask you, which chapters are present on Armageddon?
I'm glad you asked. I have a short list. It is not a short list.
And non-exhaustive.
Yes, yeah. First of all, this is not all of them. This is just the ones that we could find, which are named. Ultramarines, Salamanders, Black Dragons, Celestial Lions, Sons of Auror, Marines, Malevolent, Necropolis Hawks, White Scars, Red Talons, Emperor's Spears, Subjugators, Black Templars, Crimson Fists, Stormlords, Angels of Radicant, Masters of Protolus, Space Wolves, Sons of Guilliman, Nova Marines, Iron Hands, Penumbral Talons, Dark Krakens, Angels of Fury, Storm Giants. Plus, we know there are some which are not specified already.
Yep.
My hunch is that
There's maybe a Dark Angel there.
yeah, they're shadowy, Unforgiven. They're knocking around somewhere. That is a lot of Space Marines as part of Operation Imperator.
And a lot of those are covered in the Operation Imperator narrative book, including like heraldries and things for them. So a very good excuse to paint that lovely Armageddon banner.
There's a surprisingly cool amount of stuff in there about like what they're all up to and where they're operating, and really gives you this feel of this sort of global war being fought by loads of different Space Marine elements as this crusade descends to try and relieve the war world once again.
Yeah.
I like it. Will there be an FAQ update at launch to change existing datasheets?
Yes, there will. Most of the datasheets don't change into this edition. Most of the units are the same as they are in the Codex. There is the occasional unit where a rule might have fundamentally changed and their interaction with the game changes in some way because of the changes to the core rules. In those instances, there'll be a small change to some datasheets.
Nice. How did the Blood Angels make it across the Great Rift to fight at Armageddon, given that the homeworld is in Imperium Nihilus? Well, the answer is that most of them didn't, frankly.
Yeah. So I think this is a really good question, actually, because
it touches at an interesting point of the lore, doesn't it?
Yeah. So we've got Blood Angels on the box. Obviously, they're kind of the poster boys of the box set. They are synonymous with Armageddon. They've been there a few times, but it's a very good question because most of the Blood Angels are based millions of miles away, right? On in Baal, on the other side of the Great Rift. The Blood Angels that appear on Armageddon are effectively a small force that's managed to make it across the Great Rift, and because of the kind of honour oaths that the chapter has to the planet of Armageddon, when they heard that this crusade was being amassed, they were like, yes, of course we're on board.
Well, things are only going well on Baal to start with, aren't they, right? They've had a lot go down in recent times, and add to that the fact that they've got to cross the Great Rift. That's a heck of an ask, and it speaks to that relationship that they feel. Dante was essentially the commander of operations in the second Ork War for Armageddon. I want to say first one,
third war, I think.
Well, it depends how you count.
One of the wars.
Does the first Demon War count? Anyway, so you can imagine that Dante, in particular, feels this burden of duty to sort of send forces, even if he can't go himself. He's a busy man.
He's a busy guy. Yeah, he's the regent of Imperial Nihilus. He's got loads to do, right?
Huge
amounts of paperwork.
It's a bad job.
His inbox is big. Yeah. Will the Lion and Guilliman finally meet this edition?
I mean, the galaxy is a big place, so maybe not. I kind of hope so. I've got to imagine that Lion's got things to say.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting meeting for sure whenever it happens. Will the rulebook and mission chapter approved deck be available separately from the 11th edition launch box?
Short answer, yes.
So basically, everything in this box will be available individually at some point in the future. The exception being the Operation Imperator campaign book, which is completely exclusive to this box. Also, the box itself is exclusive.
That's true. If you are a box collector, then you'll want to pick it up. And likewise, if you want to enjoy all of the stuff that's in Operation Imperator, then it's for you. Nice. Is Lance a +1 or a reroll to wound?
So this was a typo on the Warhammer community website. We originally posted it as reroll to wound, so that was wrong. It is still +1 to wound.
There you go. Nice and simple. Now, you had to explain this terminology. I'd not heard it before. Will Uppy Downy become an official rules term?
I think this might be a joke question, but it's kind of a good question.
It works.
So Uppy Downy basically has become the go-to term for units that are able to remove themselves from the board at the end of opponent's turn and then redeploy. Uppy Downy is not set to become an official rules term, unfortunately. Although I think maybe if we had like a high Gothic terminology for it, like Ascendium Descendius or something like that.
I like it.
That could work.
I'm just going to call him Uppy Downy.
Uppy Downy.
Like it's fun.
Go for it.
So, will getting into combat from a destroyed transport now count as a charge move?
So it doesn't count as a charge move, which means you don't get any charge bonuses off the back of it. There are actually 3 ways of getting into close combat in the new edition. One of them is charging or being charged. Another one is you're able to combat disembark in certain situations from a transport. If your transport's been surrounded by orcs or something, you can kind of pile out and fight. And the last one is with surge moves. So this is a thing that's kind of been in the game before, but surge moves have been rationalized into a single universal rule for everybody. So basically, if you get, in certain instances, units will be able to move if they get shot at or targeted, that sort of thing. And they can move, either D6 or D3 or something towards enemy units. And you can get into engagement range with a surge move.
Getting into combat as a result of your transport being destroyed is essentially the worst way to go about it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Pick a different method if you can. So, those of us old enough to remember the early 90s I guess it'll be late 90s. will remember this term. Are any armies being squatted in this edition? For those of you who don't know, squats, I guess the artists formerly known as squats, now Leagues of Votann, they used to exist in Warhammer 40,000 up to 2nd edition. They went away for like a generation. People are wondering if any other armies are due to disappear.
There are no armies being squatted. And you should say League of Votann now.
League of Votann. There you go.
That's the new term.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, not happening. How many stratagems will each army have in a 2,000 points game?
So in the current edition, you tend to have 6 stratagems. In the new edition, that will wiggle a little bit. So because you build detachments together to make your army rules, sometimes you will have more or less stratagems depending on which ones you picked. Most of the time, you will have either 6 or 9 stratagems.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
In a 2,000 point game. Yeah.
Sure. Are games faster or slower? And the answer is they're about the same, with a little bit of nuance in where that time is spent. Is that fair?
That is fair, yeah.
So essentially, like, there's some decisions to make as you're choosing your army and then comparing what each other have got, and I think that will take a bit more time maybe to set up in like a competitive environment than perhaps it would.
Yeah, so the specific thing for maybe tournament games is when you meet your opponent, that the force disposition you've chosen will tell you what mission to play.
Yeah.
And that means that effectively it will tell you what battlefield to lay out. You get like a choice of a couple of battlefields. It will say this is where the terrain goes. So you'll need to set up the terrain ahead of the battle. So that takes a little bit of time unless it's already the right layout. The game itself tends to be a bit faster, and there's a couple of reasons. One of them is because of the way that dice rolling works now, is that you fast dice rolling is assumed. So there were a few points in the previous edition where if you knew what you were doing, you sort of slow down your dice and go like, right, I'll take this armor save, I'll take this armor save. Now you just do it all at once, all the time. And the other thing that makes it a bit faster is things like when the decisions happen in the turn. So Overwatch is a really good example, where previously you used to be able to trigger Overwatch at the end of any move your opponent did. So there was a little bit of a cagey movement phase where I'd move a unit and then I'd sort of look at you and go like, do you want to do anything about that? And then I'd move another unit. Now it just happens at the end of the phase, so you can just move your whole army without worrying about the order you're moving it in or having to stop to check that your opponent doesn't want to interrupt, because there's a really clear moment when that would happen.
Nice. So how do Leagues of Votann army rules work if there are no objectives?
So we got this question a few times from Leagues of Votann players.
I assume they formed a league.
I think they did. That must have been what happened. So the rules work absolutely fine. When you play a game of the new edition, before the game starts, the map will tell you which of the pieces of terrain count as objectives, and the entire piece of terrain counts as an objective. So actually, if you've got any abilities that trigger off enemy units being on objectives, which Leagues of Votann do, lots of armies do, you get rerolls to wound against models on objectives sort of thing, it's probably more effective now than it was in the last edition.
Nice. What happens to Imperial Agents? The answer is they basically work exactly the same as they do today. They have their existing codex. They're not getting any new detachments at launch.
Yeah, that's right. So you can still put them into any other Imperial army as an ally. So you put an assassin in or Inquisitor or something like that. And the great new Inquisitor model obviously came out with the Armageddon box.
Of course, yeah.
Or you can use them as an army. Work just the same as they do today.
Nice.
How does healing work, Adam?
In a nutshell, you bring back whole models, not just wounds. Yeah. So simply.
So there's a few mechanics in the game that allow you to heal a unit. Most of the time previously, you couldn't bring back models unless the rule specified. But now if you heal, you can bring back whole models if you heal enough wounds.
So you did that to me when we were playing the Combat Patrol game last week with
I brought some boys back.
War bosses.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Nice. Are the core rules for 11th edition free, like in the 10th?
Yes.
There you go. You'll be able to get them on the Warhammer 40,000 app. I'll download them. Right.
That's absolutely right.
Perfect.
I've got a Dark Angel question for you, Adam.
My specialist subject.
This is a good one for you. Dark Angel fan, what colour are Vanguard veterans? Are they green or bone coloured?
First of all, whoever sent this is an excellent human being. Second of all, it really just depends. The question comes about because obviously Vanguard veterans are first company veterans. They wear Crux Terminatus on their shoulders, which would imply within the Dark Angels that they're in the Deathwing. And that would imply that they would be painted in bone. But we've seen the Heavy Metal Stern Guard, I think, are painted in dark green.
Yep.
So there's an argument for you painting these in dark green. I think the honest truth is that you can paint them either, and then the complication comes in because the battle companies 3, 4, and 5, they maintain their own rank of company veterans who aren't typically Terminator veterans. They wouldn't have the Exterminatus. I paint my Sternguard and Bladeguard veterans, who are often portrayed in bone, with a mix of green and bone to get around the whole problem. So
You do bone helmets on yours?
yeah,
don't you,
yeah,
for those?
absolutely.
I hope you like that answer.
And if you don't, paint them however you like.
Are the new Custodes models that just came out for Horus Heresy, will they be the new models going into the new 40k?
Yes. All of the plastic Custodes that we've seen released will be totally usable for Warhammer 40,000. That was easy.
It was. Which units in the Armageddon box will be released separately? Oh, that got that wrong.
No, you release separate releases in the
There you
future.
go.
So this question has a couple of layers to it. First of all of them. The only thing that's truly exclusive we talked about before is Operation Imperator and the box. So you can expect to find the other models in other sets or sold separately as time passes.
And you saw similar things with the Leviathan set
Exactly.
we had for the
Yeah, I
last
think
edition.
all of the things from the last few have done that, haven't they? This one, somebody's fishing, Eddie. Which are the first codexes?
Orks and Space Marines.
As a surprise to probably
surprise.
nobody.
What a surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so pushing the boat out. What's the third codex?
The one after the second codex.
Strong and mean. Okay, points. How many points is each side in the Armageddon launch set if you were to work out their points values?
So they are about 750 points. So not exactly, but roughly speaking, you've got a combat patrol and then a bit more. So about 750 points.
Yes, if we're playing Combat Patrol, a few things sort of sit on the sidelines. Okay, speaking of Combat Patrol, will Combat Patrol rules be in the Armageddon box and or the rulebook, or is the new Combat Patrol book required? That's the Combat Patrol Companion, right?
Yeah. So you don't need to have the Combat Patrol Companion to play Combat Patrol. All of the rules for Combat Patrol will be free, and you'll be able to get them in the Warhammer 40,000 app.
Perfect.
So it's all the stuff you need, all the detachments and the data sheets and the core rules and everything in the Warhammer 40,000 app.
An interesting piece of nuance there. The Combat Patrol Companion answers the question: if you were completely new to Warhammer 40,000, or somebody in your gaming group is, and you've got the core rules, which in the past sometimes the core book for Warhammer 40,000 has hundreds of pages of lore, and the core rules that come inside Armageddon and will be sold separately don't have any lore particularly in it. And so I've seen some people ask, like, where's the lore? The Combat Patrol Companion book has bucket loads of great lore in it, and would be, bearing in mind how simple Combat Patrol is to pick up and play, a fantastic transition point for you to get your core book, get your Combat Patrol Companion, download the data sheets you need from the app, and you've got everything you need to start playing, sort out your army, and also learn the story and the lore around them. So sort of like a good trifecta. There we go. And I've lost my place.
What's the deal with Crusade in the new edition?
I mean, okay, that's a fairly simple one. So first of all, if you've got a 10th edition codex, your Crusade rules still work. You can play Crusade games to your heart's content and have a great time with it. Crusade, like content going forward, you won't find that in your codexes. It will be in narrative packages. Maelstrom would be a good example, right? So,
Yes, so
that's where you can expect to find that sort of thing.
There was a really cool little set of rules in the Maelstrom book, which was Crucible of Champions.
Yeah, so
which,
custom heroes.
Yeah, basically allows you to kind of create custom heroes and give them cool war gear, and people have been having loads of fun either like painting up cool stuff or even converting models to do it with. And that's the sort of way that content that's like Crusade will release in the future. So we know loads of people love to do Crusade-like things, but the codexes going forwards won't have Crusade content. The things that would have been like Crusade will release in things that look a bit like the Maelstrom book.
Sure. Indirect Fire and Hidden, how does that work?
So when
that shuffle was good.
Right, when you choose a target, if you've got Indirect Fire, you can choose something that you can't see. So you could choose a hidden enemy unit, even if they're hiding way at the back of the battlefield, which is kind of how you'd expect artillery would work. It's about the only thing in the game that can do it. If you choose something you can't see, you hit them on 6s unless you have a unit nearby in your army that can see them. So if you've got something like Basilisk at the back of the board.
And you're taking truly speculative
And you're
fire.
taking completely speculative shots. You're going to be hitting very rarely. It might still be worth it if, there's a one model parked on an objective.
Or
like
you just don't have anything else you can shoot.
Or nothing else
right?
to shoot, which is quite common in the first few turns of the game. But later, if you've got something like a Sentinel or some Rattlings or something that have like shimmied their way forward and they've spotted an enemy unit, you can hit them on a much more reliable roll.
Nice, I like that. It gives you something for those sort of advanced elements to do as well, which
Yeah.
is nice. So this next question, and you could read this one in a couple of ways. How do aircraft work? Now I assume this is all about aerodynamics and like the physics of how wind passes over and under wings.
I'm not sure that was what they were going for. I think they might have been going for how do aircraft work in the new edition of Warhammer 40,000.
In which case they move on by ingress.
Yeah, they work very well.
Fine.
So all the planes and aircraft in your force basically start the game in reserve. They move on to the game through an ingress move, which is the way that you would deploy from reserves any other unit. Then you can basically put them anywhere around the edge of the battlefield and kind of get yourself a bombing run or a strafing run against something. And then at the end of your opponent's turn, they remove themselves from the battlefield and they can come on again in your next turn for another strafing run, basically. So they're quite a useful tool to put heavy weapons wherever you would like a big platform of heavy weapons to be and kind of take out enemy tanks or bomb enemy units, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Will we see a return to granular points?
So we got quite a few people asking about kind of granular points and points, that sort of thing. The answer is yes, a bit.
But not to the extent where you're spending 1 point per purity set.
Yeah, we're not going back to the days of like, I gave this guy a bolt pistol so it costs 1 point. There are some big items of war gear that fundamentally change the way that a unit might work. So an example, when we were talking to the rules guys, was something like a Riptide, which has a few big guns that do fundamentally different things in the game. They might have a slightly different point depending on which one you choose.
Sure.
So you don't need to worry too much about like exactly which weapons your basic battle line squads have, but when you get to the really big stuff, which has like big changes in terms of its function on the battlefield, you might see some different points for it.
Nice. Is the box temporary? Will it sell out and never be back? The answer to that is yes. It is temporary in that we've made a finite number. It's a really big number. There's loads of them. But if you want one, we do recommend you order it early because once they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah, you can't have this one. This one's mine.
This one's empty.
Oh, okay.
You can have that one.
Just for show.
There's a full one on my desk.
Don't let them know it's not real.
Okay, this is the question everybody wants to know the answer to. How many Marneus Calgar miniatures can we expect to get in the 11th edition?
It's a great question. We had
Warhammer
hundreds of
40,000?
people asking this. Enough Marneus Calgars.
Is there ever truly enough?
Maybe. Can Imperial Knights still use Horus Heresy units? Heresy era Knight chassis, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Will there be allies in 11th edition?
So you'll have allies in the way that you do today. So you can ally in a Chaos Knight or Imperial Agent units into your Imperial armies. But we're not going back to full allied forces where you had things like Eldar and Tau fighting alongside each other. We're not going back to the Age of Soup.
No, thank you.
So I think part of where this question's come from is because we've been talking about detachments, and in previous editions, detachment
Staple them.
you sort of attach detachments together. A detachment is an ability that you choose which affects your entire army. So if you had, you say, I've got a Space Marine army, and maybe you've got one detachment that interacts with your intercessors, and you've got another detachment that interacts with librarians. All of those rules would apply to everything in your army that's got the appropriate keywords. So if you joined a librarian to your intercessor squad, they would be able to benefit from both sets of detachment rules. So you can do some quite powerful combos with certain different armies.
Nice. Do armies get any bonuses for not using all 3 of their detachment points? No. So use them or lose them.
Use them or lose them.
You really might as well just pick another, like if you got one detachment point left over, just pick a detachment and use it, because there may be some benefit to it depending on what you end up facing or doing.
Yeah, and it's 3 detachment points in 2,000 points. If you play in smaller games, you might get slightly less, or bigger games, you might get more. But yes, occasionally there is attachments that will only impact one model in your army. Mm-hmm. So there's a few for Space Marines. Emperor's Champion has got one. There's some for Genestealer Occults, which impact some of your kind of smaller units, so that they can be quite, even if you've only got one model, you're like, yeah, why not? I've got a point left. I'm not doing anything else with it. You might as well use it.
You're not going to do anything else with the point, are you?
I like this next question.
Go on.
What happens to the drop pods after they land on a planet? Are they left there, or are they picked up and reused somehow?
So the Imperium is weird, isn't it? In that it simultaneously incredibly wasteful, but also really like fastidious over not losing things that it considers of value, right? So at the end of any battle, you can imagine that the tech marines and the chapter serfs descend and fastidiously reclaim and recover everything that they can, and that would include drop pods. I like the idea that drop pods become more honoured the more successful drops that they've made, right?
Yeah. You can also imagine that maybe every now and again there's one that gets lost somewhere if the Space Marines all kind of died on mission or something, and then the local ecclesiarch sort of take it away and make a little shrine out of it or something. Yeah. But yeah, we think they mostly get reclaimed.
There are interesting bits of lore about the lengths to which chapters will go to reclaim war gear and like vehicles and things. So as long as the drop pod in any way survives impact, it's done its job, and that's worthy of like honouring its machine spirit, isn't it?
Indeed.
What changes are there to psychic powers in the new edition?
So there are some changes to the way psychic powers work. The main thing is that psychic attacks now basically ignore modifiers to hit and wound. So previously, psychic was mostly just a keyword that attached to units, and you'd have like buffs against it, or maybe certain abilities would trigger on psychic units. Now, if you have psychic as a keyword on a weapon, particularly in the shooting phase, it does extra stuff. So effectively, you get free ignores cover, so no minuses to hit. But also, if the enemy's got any abilities on their data sheet or they used any stratagems that lower the wound roll, you can ignore it.
Sure. When playing a 1,500 point game, which rules would be recommended to be used? Strike Force or Incursions?
So you effectively count as playing Strike Force, so 1,000 points.
Up to 1,999.
Up until 1,999 points until you hit the 2,000 point mark, and then you tick over into the next size of game. Effectively, that's how that would work.
Do Adam and Eddie have any personal favourite detachment combos? So I've been looking quite hard at things that I can use to sandwich in land speeders and bikes to work out a good combo. I really enjoy using the Lion's Blade Strike Force, and so there's a couple of 1 point detachments which I'm looking to try and sandwich some things in to get sort of maximum Raven Wing fun alongside my guys in green. What about you?
Nice. So I got a couple. So I've been playing quite a lot of Space Wolves recently. I took them to Adepticon. That was quite good fun. Most of their Codex detachments are 2 detachment points, which means that I'm looking at the kind of the new ones, which are mostly 1. So I like the look of the Veterans of the Fang, which is the thing that buffs Grey Hunter units. Oh, yeah. I quite like having Grey Hunters and Najal Stormcaller. So having that unit be able to do actions and then still put out all the pain is quite useful, and that's good. And then I'm also looking at the Genestealer Cult ones, which we've got a video about quite soon. There's some really, really good 1 detachment point ones for them, and I'm thinking of just taking all of those together.
Nice. How much will the Armageddon box set cost?
We can't give you the exact price, but we can tell you it's a little bit more than the Leviathan box.
And a little bit less than Saturnine.
There you go. When can I buy it, Adam?
You can buy Warhammer 40,000 Armageddon in June. Watch this space for more information. We'll give you a fixed date closer to.
I think that's our last question.
That is our last question. It has been really fun to go through these and to provide some answers. Hopefully you found that interesting as well. I've enjoyed it.
Always fun to talk Warhammer.
Nice. So if you've enjoyed the answers and you think this is something that you'd like to see again, drop some comments in the chat, either wherever you're watching this. Just let us know. And if you respond positively, maybe we'll do another one.
Yeah. And if we didn't answer your question and you didn't send one in, that's why.
Well, yes, exactly so. If you didn't send it, then you can't be sad that we didn't answer it. That seems fair. Nice. My stomach is rumbling. Poor old my stomach. But Bugman's is still open. So shall we just go up and have something to eat? Yeah. Nice. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.